Hey everyone, welcome to episode 110 of Tuesdays with Perry. We get Perry on the line in just a second. Today we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to start off with talking about the Signal dust-up. We're also going to talk about what's happening with foreign investment into the United States of America. We're going to talk about energy prices plummeting and the Tesla attacks. We're going to start with that. So let's see if we can't get Perry on the line. What's going on here?
Hello.
There you are, my friend. Good to talk to you once again. Welcome back to the podcast. It is episode 110. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, Rudy, if it were any better, it'd be illegal.
How is it going down there? I hear the ducks going down there at your property in Florida. You were expressing that it's pretty nice down there. What's the temp?
Right now it's, I think, 72 degrees. The air is still. The ducks probably wanted to get in on the action with us tonight. They're calming down now.
All right, why don't we start out with what's going on here with this Signal dust-up? Apparently, several people in the administration, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Waltz, and some others, including Bessett and I believe the CIA Director Ratcliffe, were in on this text. Now, somehow, the text address, the phone number of a far-left journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, got on the text, and nobody could really figure out how it happened. Is it by mistake? But now they're running with the ball, trying to make this a crisis. But the attacks on the Houthi rebels were a success. Nobody was compromised, and so it seems to be much to do about nothing.
Well, for the most part, I would agree with that statement, except for one thing. I think this was deliberate. I think there is a mole. There is a lot of moles that are still in the machine that were, you like to use the term left behind. And that's exactly what I think is the situation in this example. I don't think it was by accident. It was done on purpose. When you look at what the Democrats are doing, and I'm not referring specifically to office holders. I'm talking about members of the dark state. They're benefactors, of which there are more than a handful. The billionaires that pull the levers and provide the necessary funds to get things done, whether it's on the streets, with an example being the attacks on privately owned Teslas, or the firebombing of Tesla power stations or dealerships. This doesn't happen. It's not inert. It is not something that is grassroots. It has to be funded. And it's no different here with regard to someone putting in Goldberg's number so that he could be part of this conversation. There are still people in the DOD. There are obviously people in our intelligence networks. And to a lesser extent, there are people within the departments headed up by the executive branch that are going to continue to try and upset the apple cart. They have no choice. They lost the election. They have their controllers, meaning the political organization of the Democrat Party, is rudderless. They have no leader. You know, the one thing that the press isn't talking about is how they are eating their own right now. You have AOC making mention indirectly, but it got out to the press that she is tired of waiting for Schumer to do what she wants him to do as leader of the Democrats in the Senate. So now she's talking about running against him. I don't know if it's next year or it's in the presidential election, but she's talking about running against him. And so you have people like AOC, like Tlaib, others of that group. They're doing what their masters are asking them to do. And this is just another example. I'm only waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's going to be whoever it is that leaked this, and I'm calling it a leak. It's not a leak, but I'm calling it a leak. Who created this leak to be found, and they will be found. And I expect them, at the very least, to be dismissed. I mean, they can argue it was an honest mistake. Well, when you're talking about national security issues, there's no room for error. It's just like a heart surgeon. You get no oopsies.
Right.
Okay. And so whoever it is, they need to go. Even if it was an honest mistake, and I don't think it was.
Right.
They need to be made an example of.
Right.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, stay behind networks. It seems what struck me odd was the fact that this happened only 2 days before the Intelligence Oversight Committee hearings, which gave them fodder. So it seems very orchestrated. And I'm glad you brought up the Tesla things, because it seems like there's a concerted effort to, whether it's this Atlantic Magazine reporter or anybody else, or the people attacking, getting the brown shirts, figurative brown shirts, to attack Tesla dealerships. The cult and the machinations of the deep state that drive the cult seem to be working in concert, but they're losing. And I think basically they're losing because Trump is winning. They wouldn't be losing otherwise if Trump wasn't winning so much. And so they look more rudderless than I think they are.
Well, right, and much more than what the press is willing to let the American people in on. So, sticking with what's going on with Tesla, we already know about Tampon Tim. I guess it's close to 2 weeks ago now, offering a speech at some Democrat confab, and he was almost giddy about the plumbing, people, and that's another thing. What's really happening is not what is portrayed in the press. What with regard to the Tesla stock. What is really happening is the very, very wealthy millionaires and the billionaires who have bought stock in Tesla. They are short selling Tesla. Tesla, you and I are not people that would necessarily buy an electric car or truck. Although I have to admit, everything I've seen about the Cybertruck makes me think twice about buying gasoline-powered truck for my purposes, as much as I want to buy another GMC. And I'll tell you the reason why is because you look at how well built that truck is. And putting that aside for a second, getting back to my point with regard to the short selling of stock, I would love to see an investigation done on people like Nancy Pelosi, who probably owned, past tense, owned Tesla stock until 2 weeks ago, or maybe until 4 weeks ago. And the word went out to start selling shares of stock. You don't sell shares of blue chip stock. You don't sell General Electric. You don't sell, IBM is now a thing of the past, even though they still exist. But you don't sell General Electric. You don't sell General Motors or Apple or Tesla if you're looking at wanting long-term growth in your portfolio. So all of this is being coordinated on multiple levels. You got your brown shirts who are being paid by these same dark forces. People like Soros. I mean, he's the easy boogeyman. You have others too. You have what's his face? His name just popped out of my head. But you have people like Soros who fund these so-called organizations who through things like Act Blue. This is all starting to come out now. Okay? This is what's happening. And quite honestly, I'm bullish on Tesla now, maybe more than I was 5 years ago. Because when Pam Bondi and Kash Patel get down to the bottom of this, and it's probably going to take months, but when they get down to the bottom of this and people get put in orange jumpsuits and leg irons, the problem will go away. And so, I'm befuddled by how people on that side of the aisle are behaving with regard to this, because all you ever hear from these uninformed Democrats is, he's stealing money from Social Security. He's taking money away from seniors. He's taking money away from the poor. First of all, he doesn't have the ability to do any of that. All he has done is transparently point out where money is going and how it's being wasted, and in many cases, how it's being used in a fraudulent manner. And that's all he's been tasked with doing by Donaldus Magnus.
Right.
Now, for any Democrat that says he's stealing, he's the richest man in the world. He doesn't need money. He's not interested in power. He's a patriot. He wants to save this country. And you and I had this conversation 2 weeks ago. My biggest concern is he is going to look inward if he isn't already doing it. I know there are threats being made on his life, and he can't protect every member of his family because Lord knows how many kids he has from how many baby mamas. And so he's really concerned about that. And so unless the federal government can redouble its efforts to guarantee that none of this behavior can come to rest on his shoulders, I know he's thinking twice. And so I worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
there's a lot going up against Elon Musk. There is some good news though. Tesla stock is starting to rebound, and just like I said, with people worried about the tariffs, it's going to be short lived because what is happening actually with Teslas is now you have more conservatives, more patriots, really interested in supporting Elon Musk and buying electric when they didn't even think about it before, and also because what hasn't really been mentioned is China's electric car company, or one of their biggest, BYD, is exploding now because of the harm uh, the leftists are making with Tesla, which was
mhm.
head and shoulders above the rest, but now they're making room for the Chinese communist BYD. So let's.
I find that really interesting because, and again, part of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago when we last spoke, Tesla is the epitome of an American manufacturing company. Yes, many of the parts come from China, just like they do for GM, Ford, and Chrysler. However, they assemble in this country. They have, between the dealerships and Tesla corporate, nearly 200,000 Americans working at very well-paying jobs. And so these very same people that are torching dealerships and are vandalizing privately owned vehicles owned by other liberals are only hurting Americans. And that's a story that isn't being told enough. And that's something that needs to be said. You are doing nothing but creating misery for your fellow Americans. You think this is a good thing? You somehow or other, by trying to hurt Elon Musk, you are damaging the lives of not 175 to 200,000 people, but 1 million people. How many people do those employees of Tesla support as family? How many of those people who work for Tesla, whose jobs could theoretically be threatened now, supply incredible amounts of wealth to other Americans? And you somehow or other think you're doing God's work by blowing up Teslas? This is what has to be said to them. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
They are becoming more violent. They are becoming far more radicalized, far more dangerous. And what they're not taking into consideration is just like all the swatting that's going on. It was said, I don't know who in the Justice Department pointed this out. I don't think it was Bondi. I don't think it was Patel. It wasn't Bongino. But someone pointed out from the DOJ that we have the numbers of those phones that were used to swat these individuals. And we are going to find you. We are going to prosecute you as a domestic terrorist. This is not going to be a slap on the wrist. This is going to be a 15 to 20-year jail sentence. So you better get ready.
They're using
it's coming.
Yeah, they're using spoofed numbers there, so it's going to be kind of hard because the number actually comes in to the police department from the so-called person they're supposed to be there. But there is good news. So the stock market has rebounded a little bit. It looks like Wall Street is starting to adjust to Trump's games here as far as tariffs go, and et cetera. But we also have the lowering of some consumer prices, eggs in one instance, and gas, I've noticed, has noticeably gone down. So I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit, but also energy prices. If you looked at the cost of oil, particularly the cost of fuel, has gone down. Oh, so these are all good markers. It's even earlier than I suspected. Things seem to be adjusting.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example when it comes to fuel. Now, my behemoth only runs on premium gas, and I use almost exclusively the pumps at BJ's, Sam's, and Costco. So my cost per gallon of gas is a lot less than the average guy who fills up at 7-Eleven, Circle K, Shell, Mobil. I'm paying on average 30 cents less a gallon, and so I want to put that into proper perspective. Now, having said that, in October, I was paying $3.65 a gallon for premium in the state of Florida. As of last week, when I last filled up, I have to fill up again tomorrow. And it'll be interesting to see if there's a drop off from last week. As of last week, when I filled up, I was paying $3.20 a gallon. Now that's premium. Don't know what you're paying in Connecticut. Doesn't really matter because every state has its own tax program, and I know you pay a lot more per gallon because of the high taxation. Okay, but what I'm getting at is, in literally less than 5 months, certainly since the election, I am saving now 45 cents a gallon from what I was paying in October. I honestly believe by the time Trump's energy policies truly kick in, which won't be until the second half of this year, maybe as late as the beginning of next year. It takes time. But by the time his energy policies kick in completely the way they're supposed to, because remember, we can now mine for domestic coal to be burned in domestic power plants again. That we couldn't do 5 years ago,
right?
Or 4 years ago. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
We can now do that again. So there's going to be more competition for the sale of electrical power, and the cost per kilowatt to generate that power is coming down. Whether it is natural gas, whether it is coal, whether it is oil, whether it is even nuclear. And so all of these things, when the price of energy drops, things in the general economy actually start to go down in price because there's more competition. So what you're saying is exactly right. And then you compare that to what Wall Street is looking at. And as you said, the tariffs are doing exactly what Trump said they would do. Stick with it and watch and see what continues to happen. These things are only going to generate positive results over the course of this next year in our economy. And that's another reason why the Democrats are scared. Because they can't run around anymore and say the price of eggs. First of all, as everybody knows, Trump had nothing to do with the increase in cost of eggs. All of that can be pointed at Uncle Joe. Now we are 5 months past the culling of all these chickens, and new hens are beginning to produce eggs. It's going to be another couple of months before we can get the kind of volume in egg production back to where it was before they culled all the chickens. But eggs are no longer $9, as far as I know. They're no longer $9 a dozen. I don't actually look for pricing on eggs because I'm in the business of selling my free-range organic eggs. And I did not take advantage of it. I did not raise my prices to my dealers because my costs didn't go up. I'm a small farm. So I was able to offer eggs at a lower price. And of course, everybody benefited from it. I benefited from it because I had additional demand for my product. My vendors benefited from it because they were able to pass the savings on to their customers. And obviously, the customer benefited because they were able to get a reasonable price on eggs. All of this is happening in the macro economy now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to take a little time for some of the infrastructure. Like Trump's going to restart the Keystone XL pipeline. He's also talking about a new pipeline from Canada to the Northeast that he wants to do. Not to mention the opening up more exploration and being able to open up more refineries, which has to do with deregulation. So all that's going to come to fruition. We have some great investment coming in to the country from foreign states like Saudi Arabia. I think it's hundreds of billions they're willing to invest, as well as private investment into the country. So everything seems to be going on as planned. Hopefully, this peace deal in Ukraine works out. So we have some investment from the Saudis, and we have Zelensky apparently seems to be getting on board with this peace deal. There's going to be a little back and forth for a while. And it seems like the Europeans want to go ahead and start a war. I don't know if you heard, but apparently in Lithuania, 4 United States Army soldiers were killed, and their half-track, their vehicle went missing. It might have been a road accident. We don't know what happened there. And then, of course, you probably know about Romania, where the populist, conservative, anti-war president his victory was declared null and void, and then he was removed from the election. And what happens in his stead? Other conservative populists win in his stead. They were hoping that we're going to use Romania as a kickoff point. So they still want to have war while Donald Trump wants peace. And you said Zelensky is getting on board. What do you mean by that?
Well, there have been multiple conversations between the administration and the Ukrainian government. And over the last week, the stories that I've read have been that, and that was exactly what the headline of one of the stories was. Zelensky has finally seen the light. And he always knew that he can't win a war against Russia. He knew that. But he was a marionette controlled by the EU and NATO, and ultimately by Uncle Joe. The benefit to him was he is now, and nobody's talked about this, he is now worth tens of millions of dollars. He has plenty of places within the European Union that he can be exiled to. And once the war ends and there are elections, there are going to be tens of thousands of Ukrainians that are going to call for that man's head, because he delayed peace, not by a factor of weeks, not by a factor of months, but by a factor of 1 or 2 years. He is personally responsible for the death of an entire generation of Ukrainian men and also women. You have conscripts now being called up starting at age 25 and above. You have grandfathers fighting on the front. You don't think the people of this country are going to demand his head when peace is finally struck? It's only a matter of time. So the only hope he has is when there is a call for elections, he stands down, he allows the new administration to come in, and he pulls a move just like the Shah of Iran did in 1979. He hightails it out of there. And France has already agreed to take him. Germany, I believe, has agreed to take him. He'll live out his life in complete and utter opulence because he took the graft just like all the others in his government. When you look at, the numbers that have been thrown around, Rudy, is anywhere from 175 to $275 billion. And the Ukrainian government claims they can only account for 100 billion of all our money. Yet we have American manufactured weapons being used on the southern border with Mexico against American forces. Now, how do you think that happened? Somebody got rich doing that.
Yeah, well,
Somebody got rich.
It's no stretch to come to the conclusion that Ukraine is corrupt. We've known this for some time, and that's why we had to have special prosecutors in there to fight corruption, because the IMF wanted to loan billions of dollars to Ukraine. Well, knowing it's corrupt, you couldn't do that without having some safeguards. So let's go back to the Democratic Party. They certainly are in a funk. They got their brown shirts out on the street, keying Teslas, attacking dealerships. And now, apparently, AOC and Bernie Sanders are garnering crowds. This was the true pick in 2016, and it should have been in 2020 as well. But they keep screwing over Bernie Sanders. He has all the support, but when it comes to the nomination, they screw him out of it. So it was the same choice in 2016. Does the United States go socialist, or does it stay capitalist under the leadership of Donald Trump? They're talking right now about the two parties splitting into two. I think the Republicans are coalesced, but the Democrats are talking about, or people on the left are talking about, two new parties, a socialist party and a moderate Democrat party. What's your take on all this, and what do you see for the future of the Democratic Party?
Well, talk is cheap. I don't see that happening because they know what conservatives know. When you divide your party, you automatically feed elections to your opposition. This was the case going all the way back to 1980 when Teddy Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter and ultimately cost Jimmy Carter the election because the party was divided. So if you're going to take what is currently a divided party, and you set it up perfectly, you got your moderates. I don't know who the moderates are. What?
Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom.
Snake oil salesman. What's his name? Dean. He ran for president. Help me with this. He's a congressman from, I believe, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I thought his last name was Dean. No, Dean. Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay.
And that's why he's not memorable, because he didn't make much of an impression.
Well, because the party has moved so far to the left in the last 20 years. This didn't happen overnight. This didn't happen because of Trump in 2016. The party has been moving hard left since the late 90s. The reason why it never got talked about was because who was in office in the late 90s? Lick Willie. And you had the Democrat Leadership Council. And those were moderates. Now, not by my standard, but by generalization of American politics, they believed in the capitalist system. They just wanted to be the ones in control of it. And now you have hard leftists who are Marxists. They hate anyone who wants to make a profit. They don't think anyone should be allowed to make a profit unless it's the government, because the government, as a fascist entity, controls how the profits are spent. That's who's in control of the Democrat Party right now. It's not the moderates. If the moderates can not get control back of the party, they're just going to go the way of people like Scoop Jackson or Sam Nunn or any other what we call conservative Democrat who looked at the tea leaves when they were in office and said, 5 years from now, I can't run for re-election. I'll be primaried because I'm not socialist enough.
Yeah.
And that's where their party is. When you ask any one of these brown shirts, okay, I get it. You hate Trump. I get it. You hate Musk. What's your suggestion? What is your plan? If this is not the way you think the country should go, how should the country go? They don't have an answer. Yeah. It's just, I hate, I hate, I hate. Well, hate doesn't win elections.
Yeah, haters gonna hate.
And right. And so I said on election night, and then again on Mike the following Tuesday, I said to your audience, if they don't come out of this stupor that they've been in since November 5th, it's going to make the elections in 2026 that much easier for us. Yeah. My concern right now is the April 1st election in my state. I should say election. We have 2 congressional seats. My very congressional seat is up. I'm not impressed with my candidate. The only reason why I think he will win is because it's a conservative district and because the alternative is a far leftist school teacher whose only claim to fame is, I'm a single parent. Well, good for you, Josh. I'm sure you're doing a great job as a teacher preparing your young sons for their future, but you're not going to be my congressman.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm concerned because the next election in 2026, whoever runs against Josh Fine, I just forgot his first name. Fine, candidate Fine for my congressional seat. If he doesn't get his sea legs in the next 15 months, 12 to 15 months, he may not win re-election. He's not Michael Walt. And so that's where I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Democrats is they never used to breathe life into the far left, into the socialists, the communists, etc. They were looked at as fringe and, oh yeah, you're going to vote Democrat, maybe, that's fine. But they started, like you mentioned, about 20 years ago, starting to breathe life into the socialists, the far left, the extremists, and it's become a big part of their base. And now I think it is even eclipsing moderate Democrats, and it's driving them actually to our party. So I would like them to be more sensible, but how would you deflate the Frankenstein monster that the Democrats created by breathing life into socialists like Bernie Sanders, who was even viewed by the Democrats as a kook not too long ago, in him and AOC? How do they deflate the squad?
You know, that is a question I don't have an answer for, and I'll tell you why. When you look at how the party is behaving right now, and going back to, like I said, 25 years ago in the 2000 election, the base have become rabid dogs. And they're the ones who are pushing the elected officials, whether it is in citywide politics like New York City. If you look at what's going on in New York City right now, I mean, they're hoping and praying that Andrew Cuomo can rise from the ashes like the phoenix, because the alternatives to Andrew Cuomo during the Democratic primary makes de Blasio look like Ronald Reagan. And this is what's going on throughout the body politic of the Democratic Party all over the country. And how do you get it back? You know, like you said, it's Frankenstein's monster. You know, Dr. Frankenstein's not in control of the monster anymore.
Yeah.
These brown shirts want blood.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So
It seems like moderates, people like Gavin Newsom have read the tea leaves and are already pivoting towards the center. They're looking for reconciliation. But no Democrats have come out and talked about the violence that's being perpetrated for their cause. They still keep people like Jasmine Crockett still keep bad-mouthing Musk, as others do, and then violence happens, and they don't offer any excuse or any condemnation of the violence, which is, by its nature, extremist.
Well, it's not just the nutbags like Crockett. You've got academia. You have the media. You have, in some respects, even in business. I mean, when people like Larry Fink start looking around and scratching their head saying, what have I done? They realize they're not in control either. So if they're not willing as a party to recognize the train has left the station, we're waving goodbye to you, then that only gives them one other option. And that's the option they are employing right now. You know, I saw a YouTube last night. This young man was wearing a MAGA hat in a subway car. I don't know why, because even though there are a lot of New Yorkers that give high fives to red baseball cap wearing people, you don't go into a subway of New York City expecting to get a high five for wearing a MAGA hat. He was in there, and this woman verbally assaulted him.
Yeah, and
he kept saying,
tried to take the hat. Yep.
Right. He kept saying, I can't be a racist. You know, he was Hispanic. I'm not a racist. And she kept calling him a racist. And finally they got to his stop, and he turned, he smiled to his buddy, and they exited the subway car. And whoever was video recording this episode watched as this woman followed him out the train car and literally tried to take the hat from him. And she would not relent until she finally lost her balance, the fat slob that she was. She finally lost her balance, and of course he and his buddy were laughing at the fact she was laying on the subway platform. But what I'm getting at is, this is what we are contending with. It's not just the fact that they lack rationale. They keep drinking the great Kool-Aid, and they're not going to stop. So going back to your original question, what would my suggestion be? Stay as far away from these motherfuckers as you can, because they are emotionally and mentally deranged.
Absolutely.
And there is no easy way out of this. There just isn't.
Absolutely. I think what's happening here is that the Democratic Party passed out the Kool-Aid and actually got these people to act deranged and to follow every order, no matter how extreme or ridiculous. And now they don't know what to do, because as I mentioned before in one of the earlier podcasts this week, that the progressive wing of the party has become a millstone that is hung around the neck of the Democratic Party. And now they don't know what to do about it, because it's dragging them to the bottom. So do they get rid? Do they shed the progressive base? And do they turn against all the things that they were promoting for the past 10 years, all this transgenderism and soft on crime policies? And of course, socialists with their stupid fiscal policies have got us into quite a mess. Not only that, but, given a lot of these grifters in the Democratic Party millions of dollars, including Sleepy Joe himself. So what's quick in a minute or two, what's your forecast for the next 2 years going into 2026 election, the midterm?
Well, I want to take us back almost 100 years in history, American history. And I speak none other than to the American Nazi Party of the 1930s. They were the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. They got their strength from the union membership, and they almost destroyed the Democrat Party. The reason why it didn't happen was who was president at the time? FDR. And FDR was able to isolate that movement within the Democrat Party. You had the Nazi Party, you had the Democrat Party, and they were pushing the Democrat Party hard left, hard progressive left. Ultimately, their movement failed. I believe we are witnessing history repeating itself. And that, I think, is really what's going to happen. What few clear thinkers there are in the Democrat Party. Dean Phillips, that was his name. What few clear thinkers there are, and there aren't many, in the Democrat Party, they're going to have to wait until the dust settles next year, because I don't believe there is enough time for them to regain control of their party between now and November of 2026. I just don't. I mean, and that's a great thing for our party, but it's not a great thing for our country.
Yeah.
In order for a democratic republic to truly thrive, politically speaking, you have to have two strong parties. And to have one party that's filled with a bunch of nut jobs and one party of common sense, that's not a good thing for the country. It really isn't. Am I enjoying it? Yeah, I am. But I'm a partisan. That doesn't mean I want it to continue.
Right.
And so that's where I think things are going to go. I think this is history repeating itself. And I believe when the dust settles, all these progressives will be shown the door. You did this to our party. You did this to our country. You divided the nation. Get out. Yep. And until that happens, well, our party's going to benefit.
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to split the Democratic Party in two, but there is a cleave there forming, I do believe. So I hear what you're saying is that maybe in the midterms we're going to do better, and I'm going to add this little caveat here because Donald Trump today did have an executive order fixing our elections, and there's been a bunch of moves by the RNC to go into states and visit voter rolls, and it looks like they're making a big push. They got a couple of years now before the midterms, a big push to clean up the elections nationwide, even in blue states and cities. And hopefully, I would like to see a federal ban on mail-out ballots, not absentee ballots, but just mailing out ballots to God knows who would get, because, you lose the chain of custody there. So I have to.
Well, there's a couple of things.
Yep.
There's a couple of things. That is number one. That is primary. But the secondary thing that has to happen is we need to do away with motor voter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I am tired of people like you and your better half having your votes canceled by non-citizens who walk into a motor vehicle office to get a Connecticut driver's license, and Connecticut ain't the only one. Get a Connecticut driver's license, and all they are asked by that represented government employee is, do you want to register to vote? That's all they ask.
Yeah.
You were witness to that. It was very close to what I just described. But the bottom line was what you witnessed was you're an American citizen, right?
Yeah, that's all they say. And they're supposed to
right.
tick a box that I will not vote in federal elections. And I swear that I am a citizen, but there's no proof. So Trump's executive order is asking for proof of citizenship, which is going to be hard to manifest, but it's a step in the right direction.
Well, it's an executive order, and what can make it a more perfect law? It's called legislation.
Absolutely.
And my argument is, let the Democrats argue against legitimizing the vote. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let them do that. Let them go on Slay the Nation and say to Maggie Brennan, they're trying to intimidate voters. How can I, as a Republican voter, be intimidating a Democrat voter simply by saying, when you register to vote, you have to bring 3 things with you: a driver's license, you have to bring a proof of residency, and either a birth certificate showing you were born in this country, which you can get just by making a phone call and paying $5 to whatever municipality you were born in, and walk in to any registrar or voter's office, or today you don't even have to do that. Today, you can scan all this information into your computer and do it electronically. It's up to the bureaucrat in the local registrar of voters office to verify that the information you are providing, whether in person or electronically, is legitimate. And then we'll gladly send you a voter registration card. Why is that so hard? Slick Willie said in 1993, voting shouldn't be hard. And I disagreed 32 years ago, and I disagree today.
Yeah.
Voting shouldn't be made so easy that all you have to do is say yes.
Yeah. And I think it should be one-day voting, and all the votes should be counted in one day. None of this dragging the feed until you find ballots, Democrat ballots.
Well, Rudy, when we were kids, we had analog systems. Okay? We walked into the voter's booth, whether it was a presidential election or an election for mayor. You knew by the 11 o'clock news who won the race.
Yeah.
That was an analog system.
The mechanical voting machine that the only thing you can do is zero it out. You zero it out, and then it's going to count votes on a metal tabulator. It's all done mechanically. There's no way to mess around with it. And I remember when they were retiring those machines, I'm like, why? Oh, because we got new electronic things. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't make me happy. All right. Parting word before we cut out here, Perry.
Well, look, the amount of forward thrust this administration has had in, 67 days is mind-boggling. Wait and see what happens in the next 30 days. The 100-day milestone, we really need to be, maybe you need to do this, Rudy, because you've been very good at pointing out all the achievements of the Trump 47 White House. Maybe you should categorize, starting on day 1, all the things he's accomplished day by day, week by week, so that on day 100, your audience can see what has been accomplished, including things that have happened in the economy, both good and bad. But the things that are coming that are going to break the sound barrier for our economy in the coming days and weeks is mesmerizing. So when you do that on day 100, everybody is going to be going, yeah. And your audience is being given all that information because it'll be sourced like you source everything. Okay. Unlike what the New York Slimes does. I mean, what you did with your show, whether it was yesterday or Friday's show, I forget what it was, and you were going down all the things that the New York Slimes was saying Trump did this and Trump did that.
Monday's show.
It was Monday. Okay, so it was Monday's show. Look, we need to turn that on its ear, and the best way to do that is to take a page from the Bolsheviks' book and use it to beat them over the head with, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, of course. No violence. No violence here.
No, the violence is all from the left.
Yeah.
As you have pointed out many times to your audience, it's never the right. It's always the left.
But it always,
because they're radical.
Right, exactly. It always has been, is the problem. And people would care to look at history for one moment. It would give them better context to form their
Correct.
worldview. All right, thanks, Perry, for joining me today. Hope to talk to you soon, my friend. It was a great talk.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you again. It was much needed for my psyche. Thank you for giving me the platform tonight. And here's to us doing it again next week.
Yeah,
hopefully on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll try to do it on Tuesday. Thanks again for joining me. We'll talk next week.
Sounds great.
All right, see you, brother.
Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.
There goes Perry, episode 110 of Tuesdays with Perry. Actually on Wednesday again. We tried to do it last night, but I got inundated with a late night job I had to take care of. But thanks everybody for joining me today and joining us tonight. Join me tomorrow for my daily podcast at 10 a.m. live on Rumble, live stream, Rudy's Revelation. So join me then. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Peace out.